Hi, I'm Tony, KD8RTT.
And I'm Andy, KK4LWR.
And today we're going to show you how to cut down a CB whip to use on 10 meters. So as you can see on the car, I got a very inexpensive magmount whip that's cut for the CB band, and we want to make it usable on 10 meters for the ham band.
Since the 10-meter section of the ham band is pretty big, we're going to cut it down to be centered at 28.5 megahertz, and that should give us some workable area in both the technician and the general and extra sections of the band.
So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to hook it up to the analyzer and see where it's currently resonant at, with where the low SWR currently resides. So go ahead and do that now.
We have our MFJ antenna analyzer here, and we have it connected to our whip. We know that the CB band's around 27 megahertz, so we started there. And as we continue to go up here, we'll start to see the SWR improve as we find the center point for our antenna. And we'll see it starting to dip here around 27.5. And as we continue up, we'll see that it really has about a usable bandwidth of about 800 kilohertz. If we go back now, trying to find that dip, which is sort of crucial. Here we go. We see that it's about 27.5 megahertz, which is about 1 megahertz short of the 10-meter band area that we want to be in, which is 28.5 megahertz. So we'll need to cut a few inches off the whip.
Okay, so first we need to take the whip out of the antenna mount here. So that's pretty simple. They gave us this little hex key with the antenna, and there's this little hex nut here that we're basically just going to loosen really quickly, and that's pretty simple to do. And then the whip will come right out, and then we'll go ahead and cut it down a little bit, stick it back in, and see how we did.
Okay, we have the whip off the car now, and Tony's here holding it. I just have some standard bolt cutters that we're going to use, but you could use a Dremel or a hacksaw or any similar device. We're going to take about a ½ inch off because we aren't quite sure how shortening the whip is going to affect the SWR. So we'll do a ½ inch, see if that makes a noticeable drop, and then we'll adjust accordingly from there. So here we go. About an inch. Okay, so Tony's reinstalled the whip now, just with the hex key, and let's just see how that adjusted it. Okay, so if we do a little sweep here, see that upped us a little bit there. We're now at the upper end of a 27.5 to 27.6 megahertz. So we could probably take a bit more off. Just a note though, you might want to consider wearing safety goggles. When we first shot this, we actually shot a little metal pellet pretty far, so it would probably be a wise idea to wear safety goggles with all the work. Naturally, Tony and I have safety goggles on, but just something you should keep in mind at home. Okay, so we have cut off parts of the whip a few times now, probably 3 or 4. And each time shrinking the amount that we're taking off. We've gone down from an inch, now down to about a ½ inch, to a quarter, and now an eighth. And we wanted to measure between each one how that affected our SWR, and then based on that we decided how much more or less to cut off. And we think we've gotten it into a good usable area. So if we do a little sweep here, we'll see that we have usable range right in the area that we want to be in, the 28.5. And we're good all the way up to about under 2.0, under about 28.8. So that's a good usable range with our whip. So we aren't going to cut any more off. We're going to use it right here.
Okay, so there you go. We have the antenna back mounted on the car. A couple notes while you're doing the measurements. Make sure that you slide the antenna whip all the way into the mount. One time we didn't do that, and it threw our SWR measurements way off, and we almost cut it and completely ruined the whip. So make sure that you slide it all the way down to the mount and then tighten it. On the same note, you want to make sure you put the mount in the same place on the car every time you take a measurement. We also found that if we put the mount on the edge of the car versus the middle, it threw the SWR way off and would have ruined our measurements again. So make sure you stick it in the same place, preferably in the middle of your roof.
Another thing to keep in mind when you're taking your SWR measurements is that you sweep the entire band and find the dip. You don't just go based off of minimum SWR. For instance, here in the 28 megahertz range, we want to make sure that we're in the voice section because that's what we care most about. So we're tuned slightly higher than 28.5 just due to the error of actually cutting the whip. And that's not a big deal because we want to stay in the voice section. But just knowing where those boundaries are and knowing where that dip is and where it's centered will give you the best results when using your cut down whip.
So that's about all there is to it. Good luck with getting a 10-meter whip on your car, 73, and thanks for watching.